Well, I can't hear them.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Great. Sorry about that. So we were just about to do a quick intro, or, everyone can just do a quick intro. So tell us who you are. Tell us a word about your project, if you don't mind. Kyle, we'll start with you.
Okay, great. Thanks for zooming me in and dealing with the technical delays. So happy to be part of Mimesis. My name's Kyle Baker. I'm zooming in from the Redwoods, where I'm camping not far from Fog Country in the film you just watched. And yeah, I'm based in the Bay Area, and thanks so much for screening the film at this great festival.
Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Taylor Dunn. I was a co-director of Off Country. I'm not really sure what to say about it, except that we started it about 12 years ago here in Boulder. When we started it as a project about Rocky Flats, actually, which ended up getting cut out of this film, but will be its own film. And just because I want to make sure I squeeze this in, I just want to say this. It's actually so sweet that we're showing it here, because so many people that are involved in this festival and that were our mentors in grad school and in life and friends in this whole Western part of our life, we're in Vermont now, are here. And when is that ever going to happen again? It's not. So I'm super thankful for everybody that came. Very, very sweet.
I'm Eric Stewart, co-director with Taylor on Off Country. The film is quiet, contemplative. I was really interested to explore a new way of recording and a new way of photographing. And what we did is we interviewed people. They brought us into their home, and they shared very intimate and vulnerable parts of their life with us. And this ethic of patiently looking and patiently listening was in response to the gift of their stories. And so we gave them the gift of our attention. And what's so powerful about cinema is that you all are giving us and them the gift of your attention. And so at times the film is challenging and challenges your patience. And for me, that is just a reminder of the importance of sitting with each other, even when it's hard. Because, I think about Beverly, who, hiked onto ground zero of that bomb. And I just really think about the sort of bravery embedded in that. And the least I could do is make a movie. You know what I mean? So thank you, guys.
I'm Emmett Casey. I made a film about a tree I like. It features a branch.
Thank you. I was thinking about particulate matter, blowing in the fog, in the wind, obviously present in all the sand, but also in the gorgeous grain structure of super 16 millimeter and 16 millimeter, perhaps 8 millimeter?
Super 8.
Super 8, blown up to 16?
For one section.
For one section. Okay. So, particles of all kinds, I think. And something that Kyle, in the beginning of your project, your protagonist says something really lovely, like fog is fickle. And it's like tracking a wild animal. And I think that could apply to these other projects too. I was also, I guess, thinking about your scientist protagonist, Kyle, who is presented somewhat sort of heroically, or, he's talking about he's pleased with some success, right? Like having sort of made some change or made a difference. And he's like sharing pleasure in that. And then thinking about kind of like the distrust that some folks that you all interviewed expressed about like their attempts to get scientists to maybe think about what's blowing in the winds. And just thinking about that contrast leads me to be, I guess, curious, Kyle, about the two sort of voices that you have. So the scientist, this more didactic voice, and then this more poetic voice. And I think, if I'm not wrong, there's a moment too where they're actually layered on top of each other, reading the same lines. So I'm curious, just to start off, thinking about the contrast between those two voices. Maybe there's something suggested there, like questioning authority of that scientific voice, perhaps not. And then also, like, more specifically, that moment where they're layered on top of each other.
Yeah, thanks. Great question and an analysis there. My big giant head is nodding behind you if you can't hear it. Yeah, no, the two voices I think were kind of, you know, the original idea for the film. I knew Peter. He was actually in his research about fog was a very small part in a movie about salmon that I did in Santa Cruz. And I had a lot of people really interested in that little tiny scene of that, so we decided to kind of blow it up into this film. And I guess I mean, I love your interpretation of questioning authority. I never thought about it that way. I think I thought about it in terms of everybody has their own relationship to fog, and it's like a very emotional and personal. And if you live in San Francisco, maybe like a little bit of a hateful one. And Peter, as a scientist, he is very kind of calculated and mathematic about how he kind of goes about expressing things. So that was a big, like, fun, challenging part of the interview, is kind of pulling those more kind of humanistic parts that I'm interested in out, but also knowing that we'd have that balance of the voice of the fog, which, I could talk all day about, like, the hard decision to, like, anthropomorphize something like the fog. I think this is the festival to talk about those things. And so layering those voices, I think, felt like a very climactic moment for me, and a big one that kind of helped unlock the film. And it's really just about, like, living those themes where we have these two distinct voices at first, and we establish that, and we should know that as the audience. And by that moment, the outside is coming inside, the fog is part of the food web, and the normal distinctions we make between things, or barriers that we imagine, are imagined, and trying to collapse those kind of formally to make the viewer feel it in a different way.
Thank you. Emmett, so you asked me a while back, after we selected this film, I don't know if you remember, you were like, "But did you get it?" And it felt like a pop quiz. Like, I felt like a deer in the headlights. So I'm just bringing it up now in front of friends and strangers.
Yeah, that was mean.
No, that's okay. I've been meaning to revisit it with you, and we just haven't had a chance.
So did you get it?
I don't know. You have to tell me.
You got it.
Okay. Can we talk about the movements and about sort of the structure of it, of the branch?
In my mind, there's 5 parts. It was a lot of. It was actually kind of the highest shooting ratio I've had in a long time. There was, like, film and trying different things. But the edit came together pretty quickly after kind of meditating on the footage. For some of the footage was like 2.5 years old, some was fresh. And then it kind of, all the themes in my mind fell in place, and yeah, did the edit and the score pretty quickly.
Does this, the branch, the tree branch, is it, so it's something you can go back and revisit over years?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
weird.
I don't think it actually looks like
Mhm.
this at all, which is funny because initially I had this branch and I was in love with it. And then I just was like, I had it around for a few years. And then I started shooting it and I didn't know what it was. And yeah. So there could be another film with the same branch in it later.
I like it best in the beginning, I think, when it looks like a chicken foot.
Yeah, I like that part too. That's my hand doing. I think it looks like a hand, and so I put my hand in front of the camera, and that's my hand doing all the mats.
So I'm just gonna ask y'all one question, and then we'll open it up to everybody, because I'm sure people have thoughts and questions to share, and we don't have a ton of time. But I guess I want to start with Taylor and Eric, where the movie starts. So for me, I'm wondering about disaster tourism as a part of your sort of interest area or research area. And like, you start at the Trinity site, as I remember it, and maybe I misremember here, but like I remember the sort of fanfare of getting in there being like surreal and sort of outrageous feeling. Maybe there were like cheerleading teams having a bake sale, or like burritos, like a kind of like celebratory, like, this kind of economy set up around the tourists coming, or maybe not even just tourists, but like locals who sort of visit every time it's available. And I'm just wondering, you all lived close to there, and I know visited more than once. So, and then I think that's like a theme that kind of comes back in the roadside Americana, that you sort of go back to, like the big dinosaurs, the pistachio that I think ultimately got cut out.
It was so hard to cut. I snuck it in, and then it was, yeah.
Yeah, Eric took it away from you.
I don't blame.
Yeah, so just sort of that has this presence in the West, when you drive around, and then there's also like the sort of more like menacing aspect, more menacing than the dinosaurs and giant pistachios, like the rockets, or the sort of like industrial military complex memorials and stuff. So I guess disaster tourism is where I want to start.
I think we can both talk about this, but I think for me, there's just this real tension between like these giant monuments in the West of like nuclear tourism and disaster tourism, and just all these rockets and stuff that are like everywhere. Like we shot a school, I think it was in Albuquerque, I'm forgetting now, where they just put like rockets in front of the school. It's like, we have these, let's put them here. And it's that tension between that which we see, which is like these giant constructed, strange kind of Planet of the Apes kinds of things, and what is invisible, which is, radiation and what it has done to the environment, and these voices of people who are not heard, who are sort of left out of this canon of history.
Yeah, I think a lot about myth. I was like really attracted to investigating sort of not just the mythos of like the Manhattan Project and the legacy of nuclear weapons development, but also the myth of the West, or the Southwest, because those two things are very bound up with each other, because there's reasons why these test sites were placed where they were placed, because they were thought of as being distant from like the Northeast and coastal and, mid-Atlantic America, which is predominantly where the government, industry, and the military was based, and they chose places that they perceived of as being desolate and uninhabited. And these places, we all know, obviously were inhabited and are inhabited, and that's really a reflection of the value system of who they considered to be relevant. And so that mythos about progress and industry and patriotism and good and yada, yada, yada is memorialized. That's how we learn this history, through what we see. And so in the film, there's this tension between looking at these configurations that symbolize various currents of myth and ideology, while hearing personal individual accounts that conflict with those places. And so when we're photographing dinosaurs and we're photographing molecules and we're also photographing the Trinity test site, it's about equalizing those spaces, because visually what you see at the Trinity test site is this barbed wire fence that gives you the illusion that something's being contained, right? And so it's this real equalization of looking at everything with this sort of wonder of what could be in the air, what could be in the water. And just because we might find ourselves all the way out here, or maybe even out east, when the weapon was detonated in 1945, it wasn't just the people who lived around the Trinity test site that became downwinders. Everybody became downwinders, because plutonium and uranium spread around the world. And that's, of course, the sort of marker, the literal marker we use to mark, the Anthropocene, but like in a very real way, whether we know it or not, we are all living in the fallout of what happened on that day, and just accelerated to an unimaginable degree at the Nevada test site, where in total close to 1,000 nuclear weapons were detonated from 52 to 94. And so, like, when you think about that, it's humbling and it's terrifying, and it's vast in a way that the landscapes are vast, right? And at that sort of, in that myth of like atomic energy, is the allure of the atom and what matter is made out of. And it's no like mistake that it's called Trinity. It's no mistake that Oppenheimer quoted the Bhagavad Gita. Like, these things are try to be, filled with the myth of spiritualism and progress. And we really are living in a moment where that wheel has turned over and it's different. But in the present day, all of these issues are with us, and actually potentially worse. So yeah, finding in landscape and tourism, and the way that people, these tiny people moving around the landscape, right? They're made minuscule, interacts with myth and the things we think we know that we see on maps.
And I want to add too that we had a lot more of that stuff. Like, I think you could have probably watched at least an hour of just, rockets by the road and, all kinds of stuff. But I found when I was editing this too, that I was trying to create a real balance between this perspective and the voices that we're hearing, which are very serious. I mean, some of them are a little funny, and I like having humor within, serious subject matter. But I think I removed a lot of things that were like almost like a little too silly. I was like, this is a tiny bit in here, but like not too much. So it was kind of coming to that balance, I guess.
Yeah. Let's see who wants to share anything out there. Hold on, Robert.
Yeah.
A mic is coming.
Oh, I just had a sort of brief comment about the film, that it's, despite what you say is so eloquent, but what really stands out about the film is this just stunningly beautiful photography of landscape. And that's what really sucked me in. It is indeed the meditativeness and beauty of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because like, and I tell my students this, like, if you're filming a pizza party or like, an ice cream social, like the content is actually irrelevant. It's like one of the things that I learned when I was, kind of coming up as a young pup was that like, taking a photograph is about immersing yourself in the experience of the present and then putting it together as you're trying to invite the audience into re-experiencing that moment. So when I'm filming, while I know how I got there, I'm at the Trinity test site, I actually try to forget that. And I just try to remember that all I'm trying to capture is like light moving over texture and shape. And the content of what I see is completely irrelevant to how I position the camera in the frame. It's just about how my eye is attracted to all these various textures and things.
Thanks for sharing your films. I just want to be kind of boring and ask like about the film stock you were shooting on and kind of the cameras. Were you hand processing the film? What just could you talk more about and how that went with mostly the Eric and Taylor, just how that all went down?
Most of it, 90% of it was shot on black and white reversal, Tri-X. And one of the reasons for that is because I worked at the summer school for like 10 years. And at the end of the summer school where I was teaching film, we would take home the extra film. And so I accumulated like thousands of feet of Tri-X and I kept it in a freezer. And so that's what we started shooting with. And I was really noticing too, I think some of the rolls were like really old. Like I think that's why it looks a little, parts of it are different. And then we did sneak in some 500T color that, it's, desaturated, but because you couldn't get an exposure with it in certain places.
Yeah, so we were shooting on an Aton 400-foot mag, Super 16, and we were using really wide lenses, so 8mm, which is really wide for Super 16, 12 and 16 is probably the widest it got. And I really was intentional about wanting to use that kit and intentional about us using that film stock, because like reversal just has this sort of look and, sort of a challenge. And I was really like, I've always been really attracted to Peter Hutton's films, but like just the way that, there's so much influence you can just sort of see, especially in the end at the bleachers, that's like, anyways, and he's always been a very important influence. And oftentimes, when I come into a film, it's usually a technical challenge that I'm just fascinated by. So we shot, in sync, we shot long takes. And that's really the opposite of any other film I've ever made, which don't have people, are about plants or and are hand processed. And I was just really attracted to doing something totally different, really just because I wanted to grow as a filmmaker and, to like shoot in a new way. And I just, it was so burdensome, the kit, because like at White Sands we had to use like 7 stops of ND. It's just like absurd, like how much ND you have to put on there to get a good exposure. And so a lot of that is, and that is coming out of the sort of the legacy of pretty typical landscape American photographers. Like we really wanted that to be an association that you would make formally, because it really is about trying to sort of visualize that dichotomy between like the national park and what they call the national sacrifice zone, so.
Yeah. And I think that definitely that aesthetic became intentional and was developed as it went. But really when we started, it was also for practical reasons. Like we made this movie on like nothing, on fumes, no money. Like, we couldn't get like a solid grant to save our life. So yeah, some of it was practical. And a lot of different labs. So I feel like some labs did a better job than others.
I love those inky shadows of
Totally.
the reversal. It's just so, yeah, I agree. Robert, it's really beautiful. And does a film lacking people starring plants sound familiar?
Well, actually, I also shot on Tri-X leftover from class and 500T. So yeah.
I had a comment question on your film, Eric, and it, the sound was as respectful as the imagery was contemplative, present, and I was so glad you didn't overlay music on it. You honored the space so well with the sound as well as the image. How did you decide that, Taylor and Eric?
You did the sound.
I did.
Design.
Thank you for that, Don. That was like another kind of just area of growth I wanted to kind of explore as a filmmaker. And, it's all sound that's sourced from the locations. But, unless it's an interview, we weren't really capturing sound at the same time. And it all grew out of kind of a collage of kind of field recordings from all of those places. And then I really this is going to sound weird maybe, but I kind of wanted to give voice to the wind. Like there's a couple leitmotifs in it. There's, bees, Geiger counter clicks, wind, and then the crackling of fire. And those kind of come in at really subtly in various places, like the Shadow Children and a couple of cuts, as really just a kind of like a leitmotif to just sort of redirect us to sort of to sort of act kind of symbolically and to be like an additional level on top of like the montage to just help kind of like create connections. And I really wanted it to be quiet, and I wanted it to be true to the things we see contained in the frame. And that's why music isn't an element, because I wanted the kind of emotion that would be conjured in us to be bound to the material in front of us. That doesn't make sense now that I said it, but I said it.
Okay.
Out of here.
So we are unfortunately out of time in this room, but it would be great to maybe continue the conversation with y'all at Outback Steakhouse outside the dairy. So thank you all so much. Thank you all for sharing your work. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you all for coming to Mimesis. I forgot that this is it. It's the end.
If I could please just ask you all not to congregate in the lobby, but go
just go
immediately out of the building, please. Thank you so much.